What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of Lambgoat's Vanflip podcast. This week, I have the pleasure with speaking with Simon from the Belgian death metal group Carnation. We've been going, I think, back and forth with some trying to do this for a couple weeks now, so I'm glad that we finally were able to do it. Even though they just already had an album come out and they've gotten on a couple of magazine covers, but luckily, Simon, we have you on today. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Dave?
Doing good. It's getting a little chillier here where I live. It's about 68 degrees today in North Florida. So you're based in Belgium, so I would assume it's a little chilly there too.
Yeah, it's actually quite cold, and it's been raining nonstop for like 2 weeks, I think.
Wow.
So the weather's quite awful at the moment.
Yeah, it's been a little wet here the last couple of days too. So go figure. We're having the same. Well, not really the same weather, but similar weather.
Yeah, it seems so.
So you guys just released your third studio album, Cursed Mortality, and that was it? That's your second with Season of Mist, correct?
No, it's the
First.
third one with Season of Mist.
Oh, third.
Yeah,
Okay.
first. Yeah, all three of them came out on Season of Mist. Yeah.
Nice. And that's your third album, but you also had one in between that was a live album, and
Yeah.
you were busy all last year releasing single after single after single, which was all on. Correct me if I'm wrong. They're all on the Cursed Mortality LP, right?
Yeah, so this year we've been releasing a lot of singles, like in the months before the album release, because we felt like there was a lot of strong material on the album that could work as singles, and we really wanted to highlight a lot of songs on the album and really give them some attention by themselves, and that's why we decided to go for a lot of singles and a lot of music videos and stuff. So that's the approach we went for.
Do you find that helped out with the release, or is it something like? Does it differ from your previous rollouts for the last couple albums, and like how did that, how did this new way of doing it, affect the release overall?
I think it's very different compared to before, because for the first album and the second album we only did, I think, 3 singles for each, and that was fine. That was cool. But I feel like in the modern way of consuming music has changed a little bit, and there's a lot more attention going to like singles, or like the attention span, or the time or the time spent on one album or something is getting a lot shorter. So we wanted to extend the cycle a bit, or the cycle leading up to the album, by doing a lot of different singles, and like also trying, we have different elements on the new album, and like trying different kinds of songs as singles to like attract different audiences. And I must say I'm quite happy that we went this way. I'm quite happy that we did so many singles. On one hand, it was quite challenging because the ramp up time is long, and it's a lot of hard work and a lot of deadlines you need to take care of. But on the other hand, I feel like it made sure that a lot of that it was picked up very well now when the album finally came out, because we've been ramping up so long, and perhaps for one single that segment really caught up, but then the other in another single, another segment really had the chance to listen to it. So now, after all of the singles released, I feel like we were able to reach a larger audience compared to the previous 2 albums.
I definitely caught wind of a couple singles that I listened to more than just the one time we posted them, and so that's kind of how this podcast started coming around, because and again, when I start doing I don't do a grand amount of research for these podcasts, so it seems more natural. But then I also kind of back myself into a corner sometimes, because I'm the guy at Lambgoat and I should know all these things, right? But there's too many fucking bands, Simon. There's too many bands, too many genres, too many everything.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. I try to keep it as natural as possible, but that's how I kind of got into you guys. And when I started doing some research, there's not like a whole lot of stuff, at least on the U.S. based media outlets that I could find. So I spent a lot of time on like the metal Encyclopedia Metallicum or whatever it's called, or whatever that metal wiki that I touch base with like on a daily basis for the most part. But
Yeah.
so was it so? I mean, like, does that affect the releasing singles, like staggering singles throughout like the course of a couple months, and approaching the rollout of the album like that? Does that, and with the people's, like you just said, attention spans are a little different, this, that, the other, yada yada, they ingest music in a different way. Do you write new albums differently, as in, like, because traditionally you would write an album that someone's going to sit with from, like, maybe an hour, they'll have the time to listen to track one to track whatever the ending track is. Do you approach writing differently, and does that change what the album is for you guys?
No, I don't think we changed the way we approach writing an album. We still always like we don't approach it with the intent to write like singles and combine them for an album or something. We still approach writing music as writing albums. That's still We still feel like the album format has a lot of value in, especially in the metal scene. Like in other music genres, it's becoming less and less sense. It makes less and less sense to release albums because it's been more single driven. But for the metal, like the metal genre, it's still very important to really focus on albums, in my opinion, because it has this emotional aspect, or I don't know how to clarify, but yeah, we still approach it very much from the album's point of view, but we're trying to like do the album thing, but also include the single aspect of it by promoting as many tracks on the album as possible as standalone singles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like a bit of both, I would say, a bit of both worlds. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because a lot of people in our world do like to write or listen to an album all the way through, and sometimes it is a cohesive kind of piece of work. But in the recent past, I think some people may have abandoned that just to stay more relevant. I don't want to say stay more relevant, but stay more prevalent in the focus of like social media and just their fan base and whatnot. And I think some bands just don't even release albums anymore. They just kind of like release songs or tracks or packs of songs and at a whim. So interesting thing I found about this new album that you guys did. You guys recorded it in Milwaukee, but like we said earlier,
we mastered.
Oh no, I'm sorry, mastered it in Milwaukee. Sorry,
yeah.
Sorry, I got it backwards. Yeah, so you recorded it in Belgium, mastered it in Milwaukee. Yeah. What was the decision behind that?
So to start from the beginning, so our bass player Jarna, he has his own recording studio. It's the Project Zero studio, and every album that we've made so far, we've always recorded it ourselves with our bass player Jarna, because it's so much more enjoyable for us to like have our own place and have our own equipment, and we don't have any time constraints. We can just do whatever we want, and like, it's not gonna happen today, then we'll just continue tomorrow. It's a lot more flex for us, so that's how we roll regarding recordings. And then the mixing is also something that we try to just let Jarna have his go at. But then with mastering, for every album we decide to like include someone, an outside party, to have like two fresh ears to listen to the album and like give his opinion on what we should change on the final mix or something. It's just like, because Jarna is doing all that work on the album for like weeks and weeks and months on end, and he might start to like, he might go crazy listening to the same thing over and over again. So
I get that.
We need some fresh ears, and that's when we decide to do the mastering by a different party or someone else. And for this album, we were looking around at different mastering engineers, and Joel really stood out to us because we felt like the way he does his mastering really worked with the album that we recorded and that we had written. For the previous albums, we used different mastering engineers, but and at those times we also felt like we made the right choice for that album. But this time, Joel was really the best decision, and that's why we decided to work with him for this album. Yeah.
Interesting. And how do you like? How do you know when it sounds perfect, or does it ever sound perfect? You know what I mean? Because like you were just saying, like you could spend so much time with it, the material, that you just get used to the way it sounds, and then obviously, like, you know, you may not be able to hear it differently, but then you pass it on to somebody else. But like, what are like? Do you have like a checklist, like that certain things need to be boxed or, you know, be checked off, and you're like, oh, that sounds great? Or, and on the other side, have you ever kind of like worked with somebody or had someone, you don't have to name them or you know, put them on blast, but have you ever done that with anyone and gotten the finished product back and you were like, ooh, that doesn't sound great?
It's there's no checklist. I can tell you that. It's just I mean, it's never perfect. In my opinion, it's never perfect. And it also happens a lot that, like, when you release an album, and for example, the songs from the first two albums, we still play those live very often. And after you've played them so many times, there's like minor differences that start appearing um, that you do live unconsciously. And then if you at some point you start re-listening to those first albums, you're like, man, this is really different compared to what I'm doing live right now. So it's never perfect, because perhaps if I would re-record the vocals for the first and the second album at this moment, it would probably change to the way I'm doing it live right now. So it's quite hard to say something is perfect, but you have to let it go at some point as well, because if you keep hammering on it, or if you keep changing stuff, then you're always going to find something else that you might want to change, or if it might be like you have a balance, and when you change one thing, it really disrupts the other stuff. So it's far more important to look for like the perfect, or like the best possible balance with all the elements that you've got. And that's something that I think we've learned for this album mostly, or like we've been learning towards the recording session for this album, that really the balance is very important between all the elements in the sound, like especially for this album, because now we have like acoustic guitars and clean vocals. It's like those are very different instruments to combine, compared to like on the previous two albums we didn't have those elements, and now you have to like think about how you're going to incorporate them in the mix or in the balance of the sound. So it's never perfect, but you have to look for something that you really find like this will definitely work, or this really suits the overall balance of the album. But of course, when we're recording an album, we're of course very much fixated on every detail when recording or mixing. And sometimes people also are not don't have the same opinion on something, and we are very democratic about it, and we like vote and stuff. So, but yeah, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, that was going to be another follow-up question, as like, is there a band boss that makes the call, like song is done, or, you know, that sounds great, or is it kind of like a collaborative effort to where you all decide like, okay, we have to let this one go, it's as good as it's going to get, or, you know, yeah, this sounds great. The other thing that I think is quite daunting, like you were saying, you're adding newer elements into this album that, you know, aren't necessarily on the previous albums. I think it would be daunting to figure out where they need to be placed or layered, like you were saying. I think in my head, because I was in a band previously, like 20 years ago, and I didn't really think about any of that shit when I was, you know, a younger age. But now, if I were to do that, and, you know, I know more about music production than this, that, the other, I think that would be super daunting, like placement and spatial placement for all these other things and stuff like that. So, like, how did you guys? Is that something that you guys figured out, or is that something that you leaned on, like, you know, possibly outsiders, you know, people that are handling audio and mastering and stuff like that, or a producer? I don't even know if you use a producer on this album, but
Jarno did all of the producing, really.
Okay.
He's part of the band, but when we're doing like the recording and the mixing, then he's also like he's still in the band, but we also try to approach it like he's some outside person that we can like talk to for producing stuff. So
Right.
it starts a different dynamic once we're recording. Um, and regarding the clean vocals and the clean guitars and stuff, um, that's mostly a question for Jarna, I would say, mix related, because he's very knowledgeable about the technical aspects of it. But I definitely know that like we had to think about like when you have like the clean parts followed by a very heavy part, you need to make sure that you can create the right volume balance and stuff between those two parts so that you can like achieve the climax that you're looking for. So that's stuff that we were really talking with Jarden about. Like, yeah, we should really try and make this. It's hard to give it like a concrete example, but to make it flow very well and to create the right climax at the right time
Mm.
when you're putting these two sections right behind each other. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys have this is going to come out in a couple weeks, so but you guys I didn't see anything outside of you have a record release show later this month in November, right? Your album release show?
It was last week, but it's yeah.
Hold on. What is this? I got this pulled up right here. Hold on.
Oh yeah, you mean the one in Germany? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
We have also German release show. Yeah, yeah.
Mary
Sorry.
Axsmith. The Mary Axsmith
Yeah,
show. It says album release show,
yeah,
so on
yeah.
the 24th.
That's a German release show. That's correct. Yeah.
Outside of that, you have announced currently. I think you have a European tour scheduled for earlier next year too. Do you guys ever like make it? And again, forgive me, but do you ever make it overseas, over to America? And do you have that planned coming up?
So far, we haven't been able to get to the States. We've been to 70,000 tons of metal once.
Mm.
I think it was in 19, if I believe correctly. So that's the closest we've been to the States, I would say. It was a great experience as well for us. I think it was, yeah, a good trip for us. Um, but our intention is definitely to make it able to be able to go to the States. Um, we're working on things, but nothing is set in stone at the moment. But
Hmm.
things are in the works, and I believe we will be able to do it with this album. But I'm not sure yet at what specific time.
That was a notification for us. I apologize. My calendar gave us a notification telling me the Carnation podcast is going on now, which I know. I'm very, very aware of. Sorry about that. Continue.
Yeah, just we're working on stuff, but nothing's been set in stone yet. So I'm hopeful that it will happen for this album, but I'm not sure yet at what point in time.
Did and again, obviously you guys did the 70 tons, and I want to kind of touch on that and how your experience was. But did did the pandemic kind of hinder you guys' touring in America or abroad or anything like that, or was that just something that wasn't happening for you guys in general at that time?
We released our second album, I think, in September 2020, so that was pretty
In the
horrible
thick,
time to release an
yeah,
album.
in the thick.
That was not great. So yeah, we definitely lost some opportunities at that time. We had like a very big European tour scheduled at that moment, um, and yeah, that never happened. We rescheduled it like two or three times, and eventually it was canceled because of like it
Yeah,
kept on going and going. So it was completely wiped off the table at the end. And that's what we're like, okay, it's not going to happen with the second album. We're not going to be able to do like European tours or American tours. So we're just going to focus on the third album. We're going to try and do everything that we wanted to do with the second one with this album. And yeah, European tour is just announced. So that's already something that we really wanted to do. It's been 5 years since our last European tour. So that was very important for us to be able to make this happen. But definitely, yeah, America is also in our sights. So I'm hopeful for next year.
awesome. And I don't mean to jump around, but I want to touch base back on something you said. Like when you were talking about how when you write an album and then you play it live, and there's little intricacies that change, and you realize it much later after the fact, revisiting some of your material that you play live. Is that a reason that you decided to do the live album, because there are so many differences in like how the song matures or grows even after its release?
I wouldn't say it was like the main reason why we did it. The main reason why we like to release live albums or live EPs and stuff is because we consider the live aspect one of our strongest suits. We consider it like um, performing live is very, very important for us. And I think um, we were we're able to convince a lot of people when we perform live, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So we like to focus on the live aspect of the band. We've been together with the same group since 2016. Same guys, no one's ever changed. So we know each other quite well, personally and musically. So I think our live aspect is quite strong, and that's why we like to do the live records. It's as simple as that. So
Awesome.
yeah.
And speaking of your live performance, do you always don kind of like face paint, corpse paint, and where did that come from?
Yeah, I've been doing it for years already. I do it every show, and it's because we also really like the visual aspect of a live show. Um, like a guitar player, for example, is a very big King Diamond fan, and I mean we're all fans of different kinds of bands who do that kind of stuff. So it's because we like it that we also do it, because yeah, it really transforms the experience for us. It really gets us into the zone for the performance. Um, yeah, that's the main reason why we want to do it, because we just like to do it ourselves.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And now cutting back over to 70 tons, uh, how was your experience on that cruise? I only asked because we sent some guys down to this past year's to kind of document the cruise, and they're doing like a kind of a documentary on on the whole like event. And I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on that, as like not only a person who's a part of the metal community and plays music, but as a fan of metal as well. So how was your experience on the boat with just a boat full of metalheads?
Well, it was great actually for us. It was in 2019. I mean, that whole week was one adrenaline fueled rush, because I think we were notified that we would be able to go on the trip like 4 days before departure, I think.
Mm,
So we had to like
scramble.
book flights, book do the visa stuff, like get everything sorted in like 4 days. I mean, and I was like no sleep for 4 days to get everything sorted. Um, and then when we arrived, I mean, it's like it just feels so amazing that we were able to accomplish this in 4 days. So from that point on, it was just everything else is bonus now.
Yeah.
And the shows went super great, and the atmosphere on the boat was awesome. Um, I think that cruise went to Haiti, I believe, and we also had a great day on the island. Um, it's extremely hot, I can remember.
Yeah.
So a lot of us got sunburned like very badly.
Yeah.
But it was a good time, and then we met a lot of cool people from all around, like people from the States, and also people from South America that we people that we would never have met if we didn't go there. So yeah, it was a good opportunity for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that they mentioned when they got back was like how it's kind of like the UN of metal, whereas there's so many different countries that are represented on one ship, and you have so many people from also coming from so many more countries, how it's just everyone kind of gets along, and it's kind of like a real positive situation. And I don't really I view a lot of those cruises, they look cool from abroad. I don't necessarily know if I'd like to be a part of them or be on the board, because then you're trapped. You're trapped with these people for like days on end.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I
I get
mean?
what you mean.
So
Yeah,
it's
you can't escape the boat, so that's
yeah.
true. But
Uh,
it's quite a large boat, I can tell you.
oh yeah, I'm sure. But it's just I don't know if I could. I mean, I've been on cruises before, and even then, that's kind of like I gotta get off here every now and then. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. But the 70 tons one does seem like one that I wouldn't mind being a part of, just because again, it is so diverse. Not saying the other ones are diverse, but it's just culturally, worldly, internationally diverse. That I could probably stand being around. Those people. I feel like, but like the other ones, not gonna name names or anything like that. But sometimes I'm like, ooh, the crowd doesn't really. I don't know if I want to be a part of that crowd.
Right.
You know. Where were a lot of bands and a lot of artists listen to a lot of music while writing their own music, and recording albums and such for I don't know, to either wipe their hard drive clean of their own material or to gain inspiration. What were some of the things that either inspired you in this for the current album or for the newest album, and were there any kind of like bands/albums that you kind of drew inspiration from as well?
Oof. There's a big mix of things that we as a collective have been listening to in these last 2 years, I would say, that we're on in the preparation for this album. So for Jonathan, who's like the main songwriter, he plays lead guitar. I know his main inspiration for this album was like "Somewhere Back in Time" from Iron Maiden.
Mm.
He listened to that album like very extensively, and I think he drew a lot of inspiration from like the lead sections on that album and like the lead guitar work in general. I think that because on our third album, it's noticeable that there's even more lead work compared to like the second one. It's gradually getting more and more with every album, and it's an evolution that we're really enjoying. And I think I'm certain that Jonathan told us like, yeah, he got that feeling to incorporate more and lead sections from that "Somewhere Back in Time" album. So that's like a big important influence for this album. I mean, Jonathan is always listening to a lot of King Diamond and Merciful Fate, so that's also a big inspiration for him in the guitar part. For me personally, I've been listening to a lot of like doom metal stuff because there's also like clean vocals now on this album, and I love a lot of the traditional doom metal bands, a lot of the American acts as well. I just generally enjoy listening to them. It's not like I'm trying to learn from their vocal style. It's just I really love the sound that they have, like bands like Paul Bearer and Chemist and stuff. So those are acts that I really enjoy listen to a lot in the past 2 years. Yeah, I mean, Opeth is always a big influence for us
Of course.
for everything that we do.
of
Yeah,
course.
we've been listening to a lot of Opeth ever since we were like, I think 13 or something. So yeah, that's always been a big influence for us. Also the Bloodbath albums, always. Definitely like everything that's Michael Ackerfeld has done is like very big for us. Like for me personally, for in the vocal department, I used to listen a lot to his vocal style and to like while I was like practicing my own vocals. So yeah, he's a big influence for me. But I would say like Bloodbath and Opeth are like general influence for Carnation, but I would say Somewhere Back in Time and King Diamond is more specific for this album, I would say. Yeah.
And is there anything outside of music that has kind of lent inspiration for not only your vocal style or lyrics, but like for the album itself, like events or whatever that may happen in your life, yada yada.
I would, lyrically, like there's quite a big contrast compared to the first two albums. Like the first two albums were more not based in our reality, more like science fiction based or like fantastical based. But for this album, I tried to base it more on things that people could relate to or things that things that could happen to different people. So that's quite a shift. I wouldn't quite say it's like related to my personal life, but it's related to things I can see in my surroundings or stories I can hear from other people. So yeah, there's definitely, I wouldn't say inspiration, but there's definitely source material from
Mm.
somewhere, I would say, from stories. Um, like Cursed Mortality, for example, the title track, it's about reflecting on life, and it's about growing old, and looking back at all the choices that you made, and like thinking about, did I make the right choices, or do I still have regrets about the choices that I made, and am I happy with the person that I've become at the end of my life, or should I have taken a different turn at some point? And that's like that song, the inspiration, or the source for that song is like when you're looking at people around you getting older and older all the time, and like parents and stuff, and
Hmm.
grandparents and stuff, and like seeing the situations they were in, or stuff, and yeah, that's the main inspiration for songs like that. So yeah, definitely some influences from outside of music. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Jake, our editor in chief, when he reviewed the album, he said that you guys were moving more into a straightforward death metal kind of sound. Would you agree to that?
Do you mean, did he mean like less away from the old school and more into the?
He says moving. This is the line. Moving from a straightforward death metal sound to one that incorporates additional elements can be tricky, but Carnation have done it well, and this album sets some grand expectations for what will come.
Yeah, I think if you compare it to like our first album was very, very old school centric, I would say, old
Okay.
school death metal centric. We we tried to, or the sound that we came up with, or was very much a mix between like the old school American style and the old school Swedish style. We had like a balance between like the death and roll elements that you get from the Swedish bands, and more like the American style bands from like Florida and stuff, and we used to combine those two styles a lot. Um, but for this album, we still have that old school foundation. I would say it's still prevalent in the music, but we wanted to like add some other stuff from ourselves, like to make it more like unique, and
Mm-hmm.
that's quite challenging because I don't think everybody likes that we are doing that, but it's something that we specifically wanted to do for ourselves because we didn't want to write the same album over and over. I mean,
Right.
we did two like very old school albums, and we still love listening to all this old school music, but we wanted to like find our own little spots in this death metal landscape, and that's why we've added these new kind of things. And I can agree that the foundation has still the old school, but the sound definitely has maybe a bit of a more modern aspect to it. So it's like a mix between old school and modern in some way, and um, I think I think we actually achieved quite well what we wanted to go for when we were talking beforehand, before the recordings. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Because I was gonna say I'm not traditionally one who gravitates more towards an old school death metal sound. I've been getting better as I've gotten older and more open to it. Not that I don't listen to it, but I don't necessarily stay in that vein that often. But with your new album, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't hard to listen to it multiple times. Like some of the old school death metal sounding albums were to me. So, that makes sense a little bit because you definitely do add a couple different elements in there, and not just the clean singing or the acoustic guitar or whatever. Because honestly, I don't even remember those parts that often because it doesn't. I don't know if it's bad that it doesn't stand out that much, but it might be good that it doesn't stand out that much and just kind of flows with it.
Yeah,
So yeah, you know what I mean. It was
that
pulled off really well.
that flow is really important that you just mentioned, because that was something that we wanted to go for. Like we wanted to include these new things. We don't want them to be like too too much.
Hmm.
Like we wanted to like show like, hey, we can also incorporate this, and we really wanted to write a song like Replicant and stuff, where it's more a clean vocal focus, but we didn't want our existing fan base to think like, man, these guys completely changed their sound or something. No, we wanted to like really tread this fine balance between we're still the same band who made Chapel of Abhorrence and Where That Lies, but we just want to create something different that also is inspiring to us, but that's somewhere in the middle of what we were doing and something new. Yeah.
Mm. You said something earlier about getting ready for the 70 tons cruise and whatnot, about like, obtaining visas and stuff like that. Is that something that you have to do when you're traveling, even just abroad, like not abroad, but in Europe? Like, do you need special visas to go from country to country? And are they different between like country and country or continent, obviously, because you have Europe and then, Asia and on the same continent and whatnot? Do you have to have like all these different, papers, and how difficult is that to kind of organize? Because you do see a lot of like, especially like bands that are trying to come over, at least to America, sometimes like I think X-Toll didn't get to come over recently because they didn't get their visa, approved in time. And, I don't know how long that process is, because it seems like, some bands do it far in advance and still get denied. So how much of a headache is that in general to deal with?
I can tell you that the US visa application is notoriously difficult. I mean, it's like it's definitely it creates some barrier of entry for European bands, I would say, or like bands from across the world, because it's quite costly and quite intricate. It's like there's a lot of different steps, and I guess it's good. It's how they designed their system, and it's good that they're what's the right word, that they're yeah.
Protect their, I don't know if they're doing it for
I wouldn't say
protection or
protected,
just
but
gatekeeping.
that they pay attention to their details. That was what I was going to say. That they
Okay.
pay attention to every detail. That's important. But it's notoriously difficult. I mean, it's something that we've been talking about for so long, because it's like an additional cost that you have to like take into account, and
How much does that
planning
run?
wise.
Like, how much does that run? Not to interrupt, but just how much does like an American visa run for like someone coming from Europe? And does it differ from country to country in pricing?
I wouldn't know about that.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure, but it can be like, yeah. It also depends on how you work. If you can if you work with a U.S. lawyer, or if their fees apply as well and stuff. So it can get
Mm.
very expensive. It also depends on how large your band is. If you're like a three-person band, then it's obviously a lot cheaper than like
Yeah.
a five-person band for us. But I mean, I think it can be like $600 to $700 a person, perhaps. I don't
Wow.
know. I'm not quite certain yet. But I can imagine it can go up to that amount depending on the fees that apply for every step that you need
Mm.
to take. Um,
Does that not include? Do you guys get taxed on like any kind of like? Obviously, you're coming over to quote unquote work, right? That's what the visa's for. So does the fee that you pay ahead of time cover any kind of like taxation that you might receive on like goods sold, or money that you get for performing every night?
I'm 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 strictly talking just the fee you have to pay to like get the visa
Right,
application
right, right.
started, and like for like the lawyer to get like dealing with all the documents and stuff, and you need like a petitioner in the US for like he needs to petition that these people would come over for non-immigrant work and stuff. So it's a lot of time and a lot of working hours. So that's like the whole fee
Mm-hmm.
on top of, well, um, regarding the other stuff, yeah, that's also something that you need to take into account. But that's you like you don't know what you're gonna sell up front, so that's something that you have to think about during the tour or after the tour. So yeah.
Interesting. I know before we got on, we were discussing like what the podcast was about, and you were saying like how busy you have been in the last couple of months and dealing with the new record and stuff like that. But when Simon's not really focused on like Carnation or new, but like paving new death metal vibes, what does Simon's interest behold?
Uh, I'll be honest, I put like my life and my soul into this band, so it's I spend a lot of time doing like all the stuff. If we're not working towards shows, then we're working on new material, or we're working on admin stuff, or because we there's a lot of day-to-day management that we also all just do ourselves as band. So we spend most of our time on this. I try to also go to just shows as well. If there's like a cool tour package in the area, then I try to go out, or if there's like a local show or a festival or something, then I try to pick up whatever's possible.
Yeah.
So, but I also like going to the gym. I like doing that a lot. So that's like really important for the sanity, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. I get it. I get it.
So, so that's like a big part of my time. Yeah, I
do you
mean,
like
all
live?
five of us also.
Go ahead. Go
Sorry,
ahead. No, finish. All five of you what?
we all five of us also still work day jobs. So I mean, we don't have like a lot of time to do a lot of stuff except for like the day job and the band, and then some working out and like partners and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Daily life is what we call it. You know.
daily life. Yeah.
Do you mind? Like, you don't have to disclose what you do, but what do you do for your day job?
I work for the Belgian government.
Oh,
So
nice.
I work for the
So you can
government. Yeah.
get like you have an in for the visas. You know.
Not
Speed up.
exactly, because that's like it's like the U.S. embassy, so that's something completely different. I
Yeah.
work for the cultural department in Belgium, so yeah.
So what does that handle? Like the cultural department, what does that necessarily handle? Like just day to day, like culture stuff, like arts and stuff, or
Yeah, it's like it can be any type of art, like it can be like circus, or it can be like theater,
mm,
or anything really, anything that has to do with culture in general, like can be like performance art, or installation art, or anything. And we try to like subsidize projects in Belgium for like artists who want to like realize something, or want to if they have like an idea that they want to produce, but they need like funding or something, then they can ask like the cultural department, like, hey, here's my project plan. Would this be interesting for culture in Belgium and stuff? And then we can look into this and stuff. And so, yeah, that's generally some stuff that my day job entails. So, yeah.
do you ever do you ever try to slide in your own band into some things like, hey, there's a really cool band that you could throw on this thing?
It's tricky. I can't look at my own files, so that's something that's a no go. Yeah, but I mean, it's a big department. Let's put
Yeah.
it like that.
Okay. Oh god, I was gonna ask you something else about that. Oh man, it's fleeting. That's the problem with trying to like do all these things off on the fly. You say something, and I try to remember it, and then I try to recall it after you're done talking. But then by that time, I may have already another question. Um, yeah. So prior to Carnation, you were in a different band, Prematory. Is that all said and done, or you just kind of like moved on and Carnation's fully not your full time gig?
Yeah, I mean, there was a short period where I did like both. Like I think 2013, 2014 maybe, but it was getting so busy just combining the two that I just decided to go with Carnation, because I felt like it had a lot of potential, and because with the other band, um, all five members really started to drift apart a little bit. I mean, it's not like I'm still friends with a lot of them, but everyone was starting different projects, or really working on or different things or stuff. So it just became logical to disband with Crematory, and focus on Carnation. For example, because like I used to be in a band with like Yuri from Evil Invaders, another Belgian band.
Mm-hmm.
He was with me in Crematory. So yeah, and there's a lot of other guys who are doing a lot of music stuff as well right now. So we all decided to go like a different route, and everyone actually ended up in like a different subgenre, I would say. So that's quite funny as well. Uh, yeah.
It's cool. It's cool. Well, Simon, I'm gonna wrap it up here because I know you got a busy day of press and other things, and it's also like midday here, and I got stuff to do, unfortunately, for the rest of the day. But it was great chatting with you. Again,
Likewise. Yeah.
Carnation, Cursed Mortality, out now on Season of Mist. hopefully one day in the near future they'll be coming abroad. If not, you'll definitely be able to check them out in Europe.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Fingers
Europe
crossed.
next April. Also, I think what we're doing is pairing this podcast with a contest to give away a vinyl and a shirt off of the Cursed Mortality merch, package. So definitely check that out, and definitely check out Carnation. And
All right.
Simon, thank you for sharing this afternoon with us. We're sharing the same type of weather, shit weather. So I'm glad I wasn't the only one dealing with it today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you for the interview. It was very pleasant to talk to you. So, and hopefully we can meet in the US sometime soon, I hope.
Yeah. I don't know if you're going to be on the 70K this one coming up, but I think we may be going down there for that. So we'll see, if it's something that I can stand, like being on the boat for that long with all those people. Who knows? I might do it again. You never know. It seems, in theory, man, it seems like a great time, but I don't know. I like to be alone a lot of the time. Not a lot of the time, but sometimes, you know what I mean? I like to be by myself and not have to deal with thousands of other people all the time.
Yeah, I can understand.
Cool, man. Well, take it easy and enjoy the rest of your evening.